Ahoy, fellow profit seekers.
And welcome aboard the Joy of Trek, a lobeless podcast exploring the oomoks and swindlers of Star Trek. All of it. I'm Kaki.
I'm Kay.
And interrogating a beagle is your chief engineer, Greg.
Together, we're on a mission throughout the vaults of Star Trek to find the rules of acquisition in every prisoner.
Wow.
And the excellence in every episode.
Even the sexist aliens, gosh yes.
Because every episode must be someone's favorite, and it might as well be us.
So don your underwear and join us as we steal into
the Joy of Trek.
Oh, I really like that last one. Like, stealing into...
Ooh.
It puts me in mind of one of my favorite Gilbert and Sullivan songs.
Yes.
From, I think, Pirates of Penzance. It's called With Cat-Like Tread. And it's about how these pirates are incredibly stealthy. They're singing about how quiet they are. And it's the loudest song
that they've ever done.
You play it with, like, an anvil choir. With cat-like tread, upon our prey we steal. No sound at all, our cautious way we feel.
Right, so, in case you're wondering, we are doing season 1, episode 19 of Enterprise.
Yes!
Acquisition.
First aired March 27th, 2002. Written by, let me see. The story was by Berman and Brannon Braga.
Yeah.
Who had something to say about it later.
Oh, yes. So, absolutely.
Teleplay by, let me see if I'm going to say these names right. Maria Jacquemetton?
Yeah, something like that.
And Andre Jacquemetton, and directed by James Whitmore Jr. and a stellar guest cast.
Indeed. Clint Howard played Balok in Star Trek, the original series,
as
the
a child
Corbomite
actor.
maneuver. Oh, and Grady in the DS9 Past Turns Past 2.
And he's also had a role in Star Trek Discovery. He was an Orion in the end of the first season. He's a fantastic character actor. He has a very particular appearance.
Yeah.
Brother of Ron Howard.
Oh, right, him, yes.
Yeah. And he was the particularly sort of sleazy, mistrustful Ferengi in this episode, which doesn't
the one in the red coat.
Yeah, I mean, once you know that it's Ron Howard's brother, you can see it in the eyes, like the relation, even through the makeup of the Ferengi. You're just like, oh yeah, that's Ron Howard's eyes. If you've seen Ron Howard interviews like me, just because I like him as a director, you're like, oh yeah, no, that's definitely like a Howard brother just based on the eyes, which is just kind of a testament to just how much still comes through in the makeup of the person underneath. So good job on the makeup.
Oh yeah, because we should say which episode we're doing. Acquisition is the one with the Ferengi, and it has a synopsis.
The Enterprise gets boarded by Ferengi after they fall for a trap that the Ferengi set on the moon. Then while the Ferengi are trying to loot the ship and recruit Archer in helping them move stuff, the crew play clever mind games to get control over the Ferengi again.
Whoa. Okay, you've fallen into the trap of being so good at a job that I think it's your job. Chief, what do you think now? Are you going to be our chief...
Our episode summarizer?
Because you absolutely nailed it.
I always have to do the menial work here.
Well, cousin, it's because you don't have the lobes for... Oh, no, I can't even finish that joke.
So we have a reprise of Ethan Phillips.
Yes, Neelix.
Who plays the... Ferengi captain in this.
Ulis, I believe his name is, although the name's kind of...
Yeah.
Apparently he also appeared as the Ferengi Grand Proxy in False Prophets. False Prophets was a Voyager episode. I think that was really quite clever.
Oh, hang on. So it was a Voyager episode, so he played both the Ferengi and Neelix in that.
He might have been in disguise. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Okay.
Chief?
Yeah, okay, first of all, really good job on that synopsis. That was a really good synopsis. And yes, it was Neelix disguised as a Ferengi. There was another episode where Neelix was, like, in Klingon. So, like, it was Neelix makeup and then Klingon makeup on top of it. And that was even worse for poor Ethan Phillips. But this time, Ethan Phillips was just straight up Ferengi. Really fun episode. Ferengi episodes are just so much fun. And Ethan Phillips does a great job as a Ferengi.
Well, that would have been interesting.
And, of course, Jeffrey Combs.
Yes. Yes.
This adds to his long list of various characters. The second Ferengi is this one, I think, yeah?
Yes, because it was previously Brunt.
Yeah.
FCA.
Brunt, yes.
It's one of his rare occasions not playing someone in a position of haughty power.
Oh, yes.
Or a haughty person in a position of power.
We also know him as Wei Yun, of course, and...
and so many other guest roles.
Yes.
The Star Trek Twitter shitposting fountain, Holodeck 4, has taken to producing cast posters, a very Star Trek series, and face swapping everyone with Jeffrey Combs.
Oh, God.
7 of 9 as Jeffrey Combs is...
well, just the other way around. Jeffrey Combs is 7 of 9, yes. All right, so who was recommended to us?
This was from Nazzy, who has previously suggested another episode of Star Trek Enterprise, and she was also a listener to So Farscape when we were still reviewing Farscape, and so her recommendations come in the form of synopses.
In which the Enterprise crew have to take back their ship from a bunch of Ferengi pirates. It's a really funny episode, you guys. There are some great comedy beats, everyone gets to be clever, and Trip spends half the episode in his underwear. You know, you're into that sort of thing.
I mean, I wasn't complaining.
Neither was I. That was actually, I think I have a lot of notes about the costuming.
Right. Oh, okay. Not just specifically Trip's underwear.
No, yes.
Oh, just specifically.
No, actually more than just Trip. But Nazzy also says,
I never watched Star Trek Enterprise when it first aired. All I knew about it was that it had a weird, cheesy, un-Trek theme song.
Yes, agreed, Nazzy.
It was widely considered not very good by Trekkie taste makers, and it had a stunningly bad series finale. But in the fall of 2022, my husband and I got COVID for the first time. I recovered pretty quickly, but he has a host of chronic health issues, and his recovery took weeks. It was a scary and stressful time for us, and to help it pass, he suggested we watch the one Star Trek series neither of us had ever seen an episode of. And we liked it. It wasn't nearly as bad as its reputation had made it sound. It has its clunkers and its rough patches, but it also has some genuinely really good episodes. I certainly wasn't expecting for T'Pol to become my favorite character or to be utterly charmed by Trip Tucker, but boy howdy did that happen. Enterprise became comfort food, and I think that's why I've become a Star Trek Enterprise evangelist, because it will always have a place in my heart now for being there when I needed it, and because we should never listen to the tastemakers, though the part about the series finale is unfortunately absolutely true.
Well, I don't know, maybe one day the Joy of Trek will manage a redemption story for that particular unloved episode.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But in the meantime,
yes.
I have an idea for warp cores.
Okay.
Is there a warp core that we need to dump now, without which we can't start talking about this episode? Because otherwise, I actually think it's okay if we get to something that sort of ground your gears, then we can just dump a little secondary warp core, just vent a little plasma later on.
I don't recall there being anything egregious jumping out at me that I'm going to go like, okay, no, fine. I was going to comment about, what knocked everybody out, but that gets explained later on in the episode. The only weird thing that I can say that is like, we are examining an artifact we picked up from the planet. Suddenly, gas. And
I don't think that's necessary to address at the start before. I think that can be one of your later, secondary warp cores.
Okay, right, yeah, no.
No, but, I think there is a really significant aspect of early 2000s sexism, playing the idea of sexual slavery off almost as a gag, right? It was quite lighthearted.
Okay.
That's a weird tone to strike in comedy.
I think that's more of a critique on the Ferengi as the way than it is than it's really played for any suspense or laughs. I think.
Talking about just early 2000s television.
Yeah.
Right. This was apparently still a joke. The idea that we can just have a plot that involves selling women into sexual slavery without their sort of even consciousness, let alone consent, as a part of a lighthearted gag.
I didn't really see that was a lighthearted gag, any of that, to be honest.
It's a pretty lighthearted episode in general.
Generally speaking, yes.
And we don't really deal with the incredible horror of the concept of slavery.
It's generally played as the Ferengi not being a serious threat.
Yeah.
That is... Yeah. You're kind of led on from the beginning that nobody seems to be particularly in crisis mode. Of course, there's a problem that needs to be solved, but nobody ever seems to be particularly concerned.
Yeah, I think
everybody immediately cottons onto that the Ferengi are a little bit stupid, or at least easily manipulated.
Right. Feels low stakes despite being an existential threat.
Right, yes, absolutely. I mean, that's one of my comments. It's like Archer figures them out real quick, and kind of everybody does. Everybody immediately goes like, oh, these are just dumbasses who only want money. And we can really easily play on that and on their insecurities, which is kind of always the way that the Ferengi have always been treated.
Yes, well, I mean, their first introduction in The Last Outpost, they were intended to be Gene Roddenberry's vision for like, a new representation of evil in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And it didn't play very well.
Yeah, it wasn't going to be, they weren't the new Romulans. So one Herc, who in a review for Ain't It Cool News, continues to get the impression that the Trek writers find the Ferengi a lot funnier than the audience does.
Oh, he's one of those,
yes.
I see. No, I mean, there are those who don't enjoy the Ferengi, but... I mean, we've had some recommendations from Rucker. We've seen some fantastic Ferengi episodes in Deep Space Nine. And like, just dealing with a culture that's fundamentally different. Well, not fundamentally different from ours, but certainly fundamentally different from the ideals that we're presented. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating. But I do kind of get where he comes from because there's an awful lot of bickering. There is. Which is not my favorite form of comedy.
No, but that's where they tend to go to with the Ferengi. That's like the Ferengi is like, you know, the whole dynamic between Ullis and whatever the other one and his cousin's name was. That's very similar.
Yeah.
That's very similar to Rom and Quark.
I mean, it's a codependent, abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Like it's exploitative. Yeah. And it's
but also the bickering is also very, very similar to that. In a little lead back to our recommendation, well, kind of, Alistair Wilkins from the AV Club described the episode as Star Trek comfort food.
All right.
Which is, actually, I believe, what she said as well. So
I think that's valid. Like, it's a bottle show, right? Aside from...
yes.
Yeah, there's like 2 new sets for the Ferengi ship. You know, you have the Ferengi bridge and you have a storage space. But aside from that, it's just the standing sets for the Enterprise. They don't go anywhere new. Most of the crew, I mean... They have to hire some extras to just be asleep.
I was going to say, there's like a lot of bored people on that set while they were filming this. Like, what are you? I'm going to be on Star Trek. What are you going to do?
6 years of Juilliard finally paid off.
I'm just going to be like sleeping person number 4 in the rec room. It's like,
no, I'm going to be on the bridge of the Enterprise. Oh, cool, honey. I'm so excited.
How many lines do you have?
Your father and I are going to be tuning in. Well, we were so against you studying theatre, but now, like, look at you. You're a star of the screen. Just slumped over. Okay. Brannon Braga admitted that there's no excuse for the Ferengi appearing in Enterprise. No excuse. That was an act of desperation, and I hated it. Well, your name's still in the credits, Brannon. And I don't know, what's the desperation?
I agree. Another review from the AV Club noticed that it is one of the top 10 representative episodes of this series. And they noted how the show struggled to harness the existing canon, yet also stay within supposed limitations of a prequel, which was represented in this episode. Because, the episode of Next Generation, where they meet the Ferengi for the first time, they kind of solved that problem around that they desperately... Nobody ever says Ferengi. They had no idea who these people are. Yeah, they just know, aliens, they got aboard the ship.
Yeah. And at the end, they notify the Vulcans and don't you come near us again. And
yeah.
So I read something about that. Apparently, there's a book, a novel, which is semi-canon, probably not quite canon, called Watching the Clock, which suggests that a Suliban-induced economic crisis halted Ferengi interstellar activity for a while, impacting future contact. So maybe after this, they just haven't really been out in space. Maybe like the Great Pause that the Polynesian voyagers experienced.
Apparently, there was maybe not a lot of profit to be had. But I think we have covered our... warp core, and we should go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I love that. Do you recognize which ship is going to warp there?
Oh.
Try again. Listen and see if you can recognize it. Because there's a clue in the sound.
Ooh.
At the very beginning.
The pew?
Yeah, there's a click of... like locking in place.
Oh, then it'll be Voyager.
Yes, exactly!
Yeah.
Which had the variable geometry nacelles,
which is kind of weird because they always lock them in the same position when they go to warp.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they have sort of a resting position.
Yeah.
And,
so you need to rest the warp engines.
Well, maybe it has other advantages, but I know in the original designs of Andrew Probert, the luminous designer of many Star Trek ships, and unfortunately, someone who's shown himself to be an unfortunately pretty huge bigot of late, which was very disappointing to very many of us.
Yes.
Boo.
But like one of the rules that he had for this design is that these nacelles have to see each other. They have to have line of sight in order to work.
Yeah.
Right? That was one concept. So he was not very enthusiastic about the Defiant, where that's not true.
Yeah.
But there the idea is like in their resting position, the nacelles don't have line of sight.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some like advantage to sublight for that. So that they have to be raised so that they can see one another.
Yeah. We start off with a shot of the NC-01.
An X.
An X, sorry, yes, you're right. I immediately love this opening shot. You see this ship adrift, and then there's this slow pan down, like almost like the opening of a Star Wars movie. And that's not a moon.
That's suddenly 2001.
Yeah.
Except it's a bum.
Yeah, well.
It's a bum head. Because I think very often about a gay gentleman who's interviewed as part of Star Trek. He was a gay Trekkie.
Yeah.
And like, what did Star Trek mean for you? I think it was on like the 25th anniversary or on the BBC the evening that Voyager first aired. And he said, I liked Quark, he said with a strong North English accent. Because he'd like a bum.
Yeah.
And okay. That's a lovely feature. We recognize them as Ferengi, obviously. Although, honestly, like the first season of Enterprise, it wasn't even called Star Trek Enterprise. It was really intending to appeal to a new audience.
Okay, so they kind of completely avoided the whole Star Trek thing, or at least in the promotional material, I guess.
Yeah, so it was meant to be accessible and attractive to new audiences, which to a certain degree worked. So I kind of wonder whether this was one of the early attempts at doing something that is both recognizable and interesting to Trekkies and interesting to new viewers.
I think it was a really bold choice to have the Ferengi just speak Ferengi. So you can hear them talking. You can get a vague idea of what's going on, general idea, as they approach the ship. And you're left, you can see the Enterprise adrift. At this point, we don't know yet that it's the Ferengis doing. They might just have gotten adrift for some other reason, and now they're being boarded by an opportunistic Ferengi ship. We don't know what's going on.
We just see their ship sidling up and docking with the Enterprise, and then we go straight to the credits, which once again I skipped.
Yes.
I don't love it being a long road. I'm sorry, Chief.
I'm not even a huge fan of it myself. I don't think it's as bad as everyone says it is, but mostly I just love teasing you about it, Cocky.
Two Ferengi board while wearing face masks.
They look so cool, these Ferengi.
Yeah.
Hey, in DS9, they get all these fantastic outfits and they get these lovely sort of bolero-style jackets, but these guys look just like adventurers.
Yeah, pirates, they got a little bit of the sashes going, but yeah, they look like...
Well, also like fit people who wear practical clothing and who are used to like running about and doing some work. Not that we see them do any of that.
One of them does a little bit of ear measuring.
Yes, they find unconscious crewmen and he just goes, "Well, look at those
tiny
little
lobes.
ears.
Look at those tiny lobes." Yeah, everybody's asleep. Crew, they move around until they come into the launch bay 2, I believe it is referred to later.
Oh, very good. On the mess hall as well.
Yes.
And engineering.
There's a copper-colored device there with some things sticking out, and then my first thought was like, okay, is this a still or is this where they keep the bull sperm?
Oh, well, ooh, wow. Okay, I was not prepared for that second one.
I mean, you have to agree. It's almost like one of those like cryogenic refreezing things,
Oh,
like
yes.
a dewar with like little vials of whatever needs to be frozen.
I'm impressed that your mind goes straight to bull sperm, because mine would go to like velociraptor embryos from Jurassic Park.
Sure. Not much use from either one of those on board the Enterprise. But
horse sperm is one of the few liquids that's more expensive than HP printer ink number 6.
Oh, what about snake venom?
I don't even know what we're talking about right now. Why is this a conversation? What is happening?
Wait, why would that be expensive? I mean, it's rare, sure.
Yeah.
But who buys snake venom for what?
People who make antidotes against snake venom.
Well, sure, but they'd have their own snake farm then, right?
Right, but still.
Does anybody have, like, recreational use for
snake venom? No, not usually.
I suppose people don't generally
on
have
the other hand,
recreational use for horse sperm either.
I was going to say, I've never experienced it personally, but like one horse can produce quite a lot, I've been told.
Yeah, but when it comes to, it's for in vitro fertilization.
No,
right?
of course, yes.
Or no, it's not really in
No,
in
no,
vitro
it's not.
when you use a turkey baster?
No, I don't think that's called in vitro.
Welcome to our Star Trek podcast, everyone.
It is artificial insemination, but it's not in vitro.
And at first I was thinking, wow, because initially when I watched this, I thought that they had just fortuitously come upon a drifting Enterprise.
Like I said, we don't know that at this point because they are speaking in Ferengi. Then I'm still okay. Are they just being cautious? They don't know what the atmosphere is on board, and that's why they're wearing the respirators.
I mean, I admire them for having rebreathers there. Just like you kind of always have that.
I think they're filter masks, but yeah.
I really like these designs, by the way. Like they stick to their faces very well. They
kind of hang over the lobes.
Yeah, but great coordination between prop design and makeup.
Yeah, there's a bit of cautioning when they come to the device, but they close it, and then they continue their ascent through the ship. There's like a little bit of faffing around with the pad, and then one of them nods to the other and it's like, okay, it's cool. You can take off your respirator.
Yep. And at this point, still, we haven't heard English.
No.
Throughout all this. We've heard it's not a very good attempt at a alien language, right? It doesn't sound very natural, but you still get okay, there's repetitive phrases, so it does mean something. It's not just gibberish, and there's some good emotion going through there. It's just we've been spoiled by excellent conlangs, and I mean even when it's conlang stands for constructed language for those who aren't nerds like we are, like a Valyrian, Dothraki in Game of Thrones, and Klingon in Star Trek, and Romulan as of Picard season 1 has a lexicon which I don't think we're allowed to know about.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those. It was constructed for the show, but I don't think it was publicized by weirdly not David Peterson, who did so many other languages, also for Dune, with Fremen, and including the quick hand signals that they give. I'm sorry, I really love this sort of thing. So we got our first little taste, sort of the conlang future that science fiction will give us.
Cut to Trip, who is having a little nap in decon.
You said 20 minutes. It's been at least an hour. Getting a little well done in here. Doctor?
I mean, he's just been lying on the illuminated grate on the floor in his skivvies. His beautiful blue.
I guess it's like if you're going to be stuck in decon for 20 minutes, might as well take a nap.
Why isn't there just a hammock?
I guess.
I mean, a hammock's great, right?
Yeah, I mean, it probably has to be transparent to whatever light frequency they're using to decon them.
Oh, that's true. Yes, you're right. They're using light and radiation, wibbly-wobbly stuff to decontaminate.
But this is I think the one and only shot we see of Phlox when he is unconscious on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
In the entire episode. He manages to wiggle his way out of the place, and he starts to seeing, lots of crew members all unconscious.
Yep.
Props to him that he goes to the medical bay first, because, I mean, that makes sense. He gets... So decon is apparently not directly next to medical.
No.
Because it takes a little while for him to get there. But it's the first place he goes to,
Yep. He finds several crew members in the hallway and in the turbo lift, and they're unconscious. He does a quick check of their
vitals,
pulse. Hey, these days you check for breath, don't you?
Yeah, it's easier.
Rather than the pulse? Yeah, you can...
It's easier.
You can just lick your hand and feel...
Yeah, because it's very simple. As long as they're breathing, the odds that their heart's still beating is also very good. And if once they stop breathing, the heart isn't going to last very much longer.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's much easier.
It's very unusual to find someone who's breathing but whose heart isn't...
The way they teach it over here is just lean in and just hold your cheek very close to their nose and mouth, because your cheek is very sensitive to breathe.
I wonder if that's true since the pandemic.
Good point.
The familiarity with airborne
very good point.
pathogens.
I don't know. That's how I was taught, basically. It's just
now I say it out loud, licking your own hand is probably also not the best way. But do a little spit and you can be very sensitive.
Yes.
As we have the Dutch expression wet finger work.
Which just generally means not being too precise about things.
And it comes from the practice of if you want to feel where the wind or a draft is coming from, you suck on your finger until it's completely wet and you hold it up and then you just feel which direction feels colder.
Yes.
This is pretty accurate.
As he is checking on Phlox, the two Ferengi come aboard. I love, by the way, how they have these little ramps that they set up in the hatches where that they can roll their carts through. I love that.
Yeah, accessibility is an important thing. Why do these hatches have raised bits on the floor? I mean, there must be some kind of firewalling or pressure controlling.
Right, that's what I mean, it's kind of modeled on the way hatches look on battleships and in submarines, And
don't they touch the floor though?
No, not usually.
Oh, okay.
It's much harder to make a seal on a doorway if it touches the floor.
Oh, okay, yes.
Doorway goes much. It's so much easier to make a good seal if you've got like a raised lip. So that's
well, mommy and daddy seal. You pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Now.
He
disappears. Don't know where that joke was going
and
for.
these Ferengi, they are just randomly ransacking shit. They just kind of like grab whatever looks vaguely interesting.
You know, I thought that at first, and then I thought about Firefly season 1. Well, there was only one season, episode 5, Ariel, where the heroes of the show rob a hospital.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of show it is.
And they literally have on their arm written the names of the drugs that they need to get.
Yes, but if you're an alien, you don't know that. So I kind of assume that these guys, they're experienced pirates.
Yeah.
They may just have a general sense of, okay, we don't know this culture. Where would they keep their expensive medicines or their rare medicines or whatever?
And then you get the scene in the mess room where they just like take a few dishes, pies, plates and all, which just get thrown into a big sack.
Hey, like historically, pirates didn't eat like kings.
No, but you don't just throw the food on the plate in the bag with the rest of the loot.
I don't know. I mean, expediency is a thing, right? Larceny isn't one of my skills. I don't know if it's one of your many talents, but
I've never really exercised it, if it is, so I wouldn't know.
Speed and opportunism.
I do love how he just like checks into one of those containers, which immediately it rattles a bit, and he goes like, "Oh, what's this?" He opens it up. There's a little screechy sound, and he very hurriedly closes it again. It's like one of Phlox's little alien creatures that he keeps around for medicinal purposes, I presume.
Very good, very good. And then we have a Trip coming down the hatch that exists in sickbay for some reason. It has a ladder and a ceiling hatch, and he comes sort of poking down like ceiling cat.
Ceiling Trip, as you believe you mumbled when we were watching the episode.
I mean, watching everyone steal
it gets
shit.
a lot of good use because it was like that same ladder and hatch were also used in Night in Sickbay, as I recall correctly.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I wonder what it's normally for. Like, why is that an access into...
I assume it's just like a Jeffrey's tube or something, and that he just like, we need we still need a sick bay. Where will we put it? Oh, no, we put it here, but there's a Jeffrey's tube. Yeah, whatever, we don't need to go there all that often. You know, it's...
Yeah, that's how you design a spaceship. Yeah, you just think, what is it? Ah, fine, it'll be fine.
Personally, I always just kind of thought that it was like access for medical equipment, like maintenance. Like, oh, we need to work on this machine, and it's part of it's underneath because we need to try to save space in there. That's how I always just assumed that it was.
Trip goes for a little walk and has to duck sideways when they bring in roll one of the missiles through the corridors. That sounds reasonable, you know? It's like, why didn't they take all the missiles? That looks like a valuable thing to steal.
Well, hopefully they're all locked down.
Clearly not, because...
No, but like this was one that was probably like on standby. You'd have a few like that are ready to be loaded. You know, you've got a few in the tubes, or maybe you don't have them in the tubes.
No, generally not.
No, I don't know.
I mean, I don't think that's the practice on submarines to have them in... I mean, modern missiles on board military ships, they're just generally hoisted in canisters or... and the whole canister is just sitting on the launcher, and it just like pops a missile out when it needs it.
Speaking of missiles...
Yeah?
Do you think that Trip is wearing a dance belt under his underoos?
I don't actually know what a dance belt is.
Yeah, of course I know what it is, but I also cosplay, so of course I know what it is.
Oh, it's what penis havers wear under their ballet hoses when they're dancers to just sort of make the whole sort of front area a bit more smooth and flat.
Oh, okay. So
You
the
know,
opposite of a jockstrap, basically.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Right,
yeah. A jockant.
Right.
Strap.
Yes. I have no idea.
Because if he is, then he has some...
It would be impolite to hypothesize about the size of his endowments.
I'm sorry, this is a scientific podcast, so maybe that's where he gets his nickname, Trip. Maybe he has, where some have 2, he has 3. I don't know.
Yeah, kind of has to roll it up or he trips over it.
Oh, wow! Hey, by the way, we've started, we have these GIFs. This is for you listening at home. We have these GIFs that we're watching, and those are a bonus feature on our Patreon feed. So if you want a lot of GIFs, which is what, I don't think we've ever explained it.
I don't think we have. So there's the classical debate, is it a GIF or a GIF?
Where I feel very strongly, it should be GIF because it's graphical interchange format.
The inventor says that it should be pronounced GIF. I just say death of the author, It's like, who cares about his... It's just... he invented it, but it's just his opinion,
Yes, but I also say aluminum because I strongly feel that if you name something, if you discover or isolate something, you get to name it. But yes, then, you've also shared with me the argument that then JPEG should actually be JFEG.
Yes.
From the Joint Photographic Experts Group.
So, since my philosophy is the only good compromise is one where everybody is unhappy, Kaki here decided to start referring to them as GIFs.
I can't claim authorship. I don't know that that's necessarily something that I came up with or that I found, but yeah, we found a happy compromise that absolutely everyone hates, including our chief.
Oh, don't worry. There's more pronunciation arguments that I hate more than this. This is a minor one for me.
Yes, thank you. So yes, these GIFs are made available to our Patreon feed. So if you want to see a lot of these GIFs with Connor Trenier prancing about in his underwear and see why...
They contain the subtitles, so you could in fact watch an entire episode like this just in 3 to 5 second intervals.
As we do. Interestingly, there's no subtitles for the Ferengi language.
No, I did read somewhere that apparently in certain streaming releases it is subtitled as a Ferengi language.
Ah, okay. Giving away the clue that these are indeed Ferengi, which we're not supposed to know. We don't talk about.
The captain quickly crowbars the nameplate of the bridge of the Enterprise. I guess he figures it must be valuable material or something.
Yes, I mean, it would make sense for like how decorative we've seen the latter-day Ferengi, that they would probably make their nameplates out of,
gold-pressed platinum. Yeah. Also of great interest to them is a little slidey chair on the bridge, which gets like...
I think that's Travis's slidey chair.
Yeah.
Oh, and boots.
Yes. Apparently he is very happy to find himself a new pair of boots.
Which is weird, because his boots f***ing rock.
I know, right? Maybe they're old and worn out, and they give us bunions problem.
Oh, okay. There's a more advanced tread technology, but he puts it up to his foot and it's way too big. A human boot, that will not fit a Ferengi foot. Do you see his socks, by the way?
Yes, very colourful.
They're so colourful.
See, my thing when I saw the Ferengi boots was it just looked like it would be really cramped in there, because it's a pretty narrow-footed boot, whereas the other one was a lot wider and it had more space. So it kind of seemed what it seemed like to me. As someone who's had this problem where I got boots and I was like, oh, these are great. Oh no, these are terrible because they're really narrow and they start to hurt after wearing them for a little bit. So I think that's what he's after. He's like, oh man, I can have this where it doesn't pinch my toes. Yes, please.
Here we get that scene where I was just talking about, where he's raiding the food cabinets, where the cheese platter apparently does not meet with his approval, but the pie or whatever it is does. So he even comes back for seconds.
The serving case, as it's called.
Oh, that's it. Yes, that was the name.
Apparently, I mean, yeah, I guess that sort of makes sense. If you have overlapping shifts and people coming in on the regular, there's just some food that's ready to take and some you can get from the replicator or the protein resequencer, and some you can maybe ask for and wait for.
Yeah, depending on what's on the menu. I mean, we know that they eat well on board the...
Oh, yeah, based on the previous Enterprise episode that we did. Chief, which one was that?
That one was the episode Singularity, Season 2, Episode 9.
Thank you. That menu was extra. Yeah. The 3 fondue meal.
Yes.
We start with a soy fondue and then a cheese fondue and then a chocolate fondue.
So Trip is sneaking through the ship. He's checking out the various areas until he comes to a console where he can actually get some camera views of the area.
Yeah, where he sees Captain Archer being trundled away by
He's being hauled off the bridge. He'd fallen asleep in his chair.
And they recognized him as the commander of the ship.
Yeah, which seems to make a reasonable assumption. The guy who's sitting on the chair in the middle of the bridge.
I mean, that's how their ship is organized.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty universal in the Star Trek universe. The Klingons do it, the Romulans do it.
Yep. NASA does it. I understood that NASA has actually adopted the structure of the Star Trek bridge.
For what?
Command and control. Ground control for some of the... This is latter day, so not the big computer rooms that we're used to from, the Apollo program.
Yeah.
But when there were redesigns in, the 1990s or early 2000s for more mission variable control rooms.
Right.
Where you just have screens that you plug your laptop in and they can have multiple designations, that the responsible chief officer would have this where he'd be able to turn around and look over everyone's shoulder, essentially.
Okay.
Because that's the great point of this circular thing. You have one big screen that you can all be facing, or that certain members of the crew can be facing, so certain members are facing away from it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this idea that you have a mission commander who can turn around and look over anyone's shoulder.
Not actually seen that. Sounds like an interesting idea. They handcuff him and wake him up with a hypo spray.
And yeah,
it takes a second for their universal translator to home in on the human language.
Based on what? Like he says,
I don't understand.
Suddenly they speak. I guess he's homing in on his brain frequencies or whatever.
that's not how languages work.
Yes, it is. That's how universal translators work. I mean, we see a definite proof of that in Darmok, because like the language is actually perfectly translated without translating the intent of it.
Okay. I'm still awaiting a recommendation for the Next Generation episode of Darmok, but like I think it's settled law at this point that the linguistics kind of don't make sense, but the concept does. Like the emotions certainly do. I wonder if our friend Toledo would have a recommendation for us.
I think it's like an amazing prescience of the writers there into what would happen with, language, meme speak, everything. So much like communication being done in. Which is entirely
inscruptible.
Yeah, if you don't have the cultural context, you have no idea what's going on about. Yeah, so I thought that was very prescient of them.
Who the hell are you? Who we are is unimportant. Do you command the ship?
I'm the captain.
And they ask him for the location of the vault.
Yes.
And this is where straight away they give Archer the clue that he needed to understand like how to undermine them.
This is a vessel of exploration, not a cargo ship. We don't do any commerce.
They find absolutely like unimaginable.
Yeah, they can't conceive of that.
And they keep calling him a liar, and they keep beating him up with the rifle butt.
Yeah.
Which is
not even with the butt. I think they just like poke the barrel into him. But...
Oh, yikes.
So there's a little bit of bickering. Like one of them says, like, let's just grab what we got and get going. Then we get the first intersection of like, but what about the Females?
Yes.
And yes, I'm going to keep saying Females whenever Ferengi are involved.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I don't... Strange hill to die on, but at least you're dead, as they say on Twitter.
Wow.
No, I don't mean that at all. Sometimes when people, often through lack of knowledge, like mispronounce something, you can correct them, or maybe you shouldn't, because then you can just leave that magic in the world.
Yes.
Like my Northern Irish uncle calls the Spanish and Mexican dish fajitas fajitas, and nobody ever corrects him, because we don't want that magic to leave the world. It's a gift that we give to everybody else that he makes fajitas for.
Now I want Mexican food.
But when they mention, absconding with some of these Females, as you title them, that's when Archer jumps in.
Yeah.
You've reconsidered?
And now he immediately starts with this ruse specifically to prevent any of his crew, and specifically the female members of his crew, from being kidnapped and enslaved. Good captain move. Well done.
He starts negotiating immediately.
I'll show you where the vault is. If you let me keep half the gold.
Gold-pressed latinum? No,
gold. But gold-pressed latinum is worth more than gold. Because isn't it established later on that
it is.
The gold is just there to keep the latinum from...
Yes.
Going away, oxidizing, whatever
Deep Space
it is.
Nine, because it's liquid, is latinum, and it's...
So how do you press gold around it if it's liquid?
Oh, with a special machine. So
very skillfully.
Yeah, Quark is very disappointed.
Someone's extracted all the latinum! There's nothing here but worthless gold!
But yes, gold bars, hundreds of them, but he wants to keep half. There's a little bit of haggling. They settle on 35%, I believe.
And, well, they decline his offer. We'll find it ourselves.
No, you won't.
Yeah. And the lowest-ranking member of the four-person Ferengi crew is instructed to load the rest of the valuables while the other three go and find this vault themselves.
Like, why do I have to do it? Make him do it.
And it's Jeffrey Combs who's playing Menk. It's such a rarity for him to play someone who's not in a position of power.
Yeah, I mean, he plays a very meek, very Rom-like.
Oh, that's a good one,
Ferengi.
He has tremendous faith in his cousin.
Yes.
Which the captain... Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what the captain sort of uncovers as he carries all these heavy things.
Because he eventually tries to get him to... we'll get there.
Very good. So here we get to see that set of the interior of the very small cargo hold of the Ferengi ship.
I think it's just a corridor that they're just filling up with stuff.
There's a plasma rocket, and he's carrying over these heavy boxes. And
no, put them over here. No, put them over there.
This.
There's a bowl of fresh earth fruit.
I noticed that. He's got some fruit and veggies.
How did they get that? How long have they been on the wave at this point?
Oh, interesting question. I mean, it's episode 19 of the first season.
Yeah.
I don't know if
So it's been a while. Like those bananas are probably more like suitable for banana bread at this point than.
I mean, they might have stasis units, that are.
Do they?
I don't know.
Grapes.
Chief, do we know anything about that?
Okay, so the timeline in Enterprise is a little difficult because there's a lot of dates where they're just completely unknown because we don't have the standard like stardate, whatever, that we do with later series. However, about what I can see, it looks like the last time they're on a colony that we know of in an actual episode. So anywhere where they would have been like somewhere on the ground was October, and this takes place in roughly December. So yeah, it's been a little bit. As far as details about what the mess serves, it's really just talking about like protein resequencers. So I don't know if they have a hydroponics bay.
Interesting. It's so difficult to find new responses
Yes.
when I mean, we're trying to communicate through a temporal vortex.
And we have to. I mean, we do get the
You learn
response
it
eventually. Yes.
but like contemporaneous with our audience.
So full disclosure here, I was like, after recording, I don't hear any of these until they actually air, and that's when I re-listen to them, because that creates a little bit of distance between me as well, between having recorded this and then getting to listen to it. So I listen along with the new episodes as they come out for everybody.
And I listen when our chief engineer completes the... I mean, editing is a generous word for like the virtuous work that he does to eliminate so much of our stupidity.
Yes.
Like if you just listen to these episodes and gosh, they're really stupid. He makes us sound so much smarter than we actually are. Thank you, Chief.
But yes, Archer starts to try to work his finger behind
He's
Krem.
Ciscoing. Yeah,
he's
he's like-
that's a very good point. Yeah, that's
Like
exactly
Cisco
what
did whenever
does.
his station was taken over. Find a weakness and press on it. Usually people's ego and their insecurities.
So what do? Split the profits equally between the four of you?
Oh, my cousin determines the shares.
You must get a bigger percentage than your crewmates.
Actually, I get the smallest.
Yeah, but unfortunately, this isn't the second of the Jem'Hadar, who in one little ship was much wiser to his act. But I do love how Menk moves throughout all this, because even though he's a Ferengi, a foppish species, the clothing is pretty tight, it's pretty practical. He's got his rifle on a sling, he's got leather pants.
Yeah.
And Archer, oh, my throat is so dry, perhaps you could get me a glass of water.
Yeah.
And allows himself to be cuffed to one of the many, many handrails that the Enterprise sports, which is handy.
Next to every door, because
And anytime the ship might shake.
Yeah, you can just have got something to grab onto.
Whenever somebody yells, brace.
So Trip tries to get him out of the...
I'm sorry. I just want to show off. We were at a Christmas dinner earlier at the end of last year, where one of the guests...
That's a traditional time for them.
Yes, yeah. With some friends, and two of the guests had recently married, and one of them is an air flight enthusiast, works at an airplane museum, is working on his pilot license. Oh. And it occurred to me to say grace in the way that I imagine pilots do, which is head down, stay down, grace, grace, grace.
Very good.
Very proud of myself. That went down very well.
I always like to do it in the Peter Pan movie. No, it's Hook. Hook, it's called.
Hook.
Yes. Everybody say Grace. Grace!
Oh, featuring... Oh, Chief, can you please tell me the name of the actor?
That'd be Dante Basco, who, man, I love him. Gotta meet him. He's as cool as you would want him to be, given what you saw him as Rufio.
Yes.
Rufio!
Yeah.
Oh!
His name came up a while ago. I can't remember what it was.
On Rebel Air.
That was it, yes.
Greg and I were enthusiastic about a character in Star Wars Rebels. That was very exciting.
So, Trip tries to break Archer out of the handcuffs, which she fails at.
Yes. They're too old-fashioned or too newfangled.
Yeah,
Unclear.
Paul later holds up the keys, and it's just like a little hook. I mean, that's even simpler than U.S. police handcuff keys,
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's some kind of materials interaction that it can't be replicated.
Maybe it's magnetic, who knows?
Can you get a phase pistol to clean out the armory? There are 14 weapons lockers on this ship. They can't have emptied every one of them.
Trust me, Captain, I've already checked.
That's what he does. He the first few minutes of him skulking around the ship is just checking out all the different areas.
Yep. I'm envious of people who have bodily temperature control enough that they can walk around barefoot in a space where they're normally clothed and still be equally as comfortable.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's either shivering or sweating.
I mean, he might just be tough.
Okay, well, cool. Okay, so I guess I'm not tough. He is tough. He has three where others have two.
Tuff. Krem returns with a glass of water and a sandwich.
Oh, shit. I've been calling him Menk. He's Krem, of course.
Yes.
Which is already bitten.
Which he's already eating. Oh, this is good. It's like, and he stands there until Archie goes like, "You were getting those from me." Oh yeah, sorry, you forgot about that.
He's awfully amenable and like hands him to him and knocks him. Archer has told Tucker that there's this hypo spray that can wake people up. They used to
wake him up, which they apparently just left lying around.
So he goes to engineering, cargo bay, whatever.
Yeah, well, it's the area where the device was that they took on board.
And he uses it first on T'Pol and then on Hoshi.
But it doesn't work on Hoshi.
Hey, that's interesting. Yeah, he gives Hoshi the shot and she doesn't wake up.
I guess because it's empty. He later says, like, okay, yeah, we got this thing, but it's empty. So I guess it ran out after 2 shots.
But so T'Pol is around. But before they can convey much more information, Ferengi arrive with Archer.
Yeah.
And
T'Pol plays possum.
She plays possum, and Tucker sort of skulks around. Hop, 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 hop. It's one of my favorite chiefs. Just very quickly, for those of you who are in our Patreon feed, it's Chief ENT 1190338. Gif. It's one of my favorites. You can see him sort of hop, 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 hop.
Oh, hang on. I can't see the numbers.
Kitty-footing around.
I can't see the numbers in mine.
I know, you have to tap into the gallery and press the eye on the top. But it reminded me a lot of Pip, our pod kitty, the way she sometimes hippity-hops around obstacles.
Yes. She is thankfully sleeping the sleep of the innocent. Well, sleep of the guilty in her case, but...
Well, innocent until proven guilty.
Yes.
She is the defendant.
How much proof would you like?
Hey, a sentence or a judgment has not yet been rendered. She's a very, very good kitty.
We had to lock her up earlier in the hallway because she was leaving a little bit too rambunctious while we were trying to record our Patreon watch-along.
Yes,
we had
a little sort of technical issue, so that required me to do a lot of fiddling with cables and whatever. And
she was like,
opportunity knocks! That's for me to sink my claws and teeth and the rest of my bullshit into. But okay, we find Krem skulking around and becoming entranced by the beauty of this exotic female. Yeah. Ignoring Hoshi entirely, like, hey, what the f***
I guess I guess it must be the delicate pointy ears of the Vulcan physique that he's attracted to.
There are times I wish Vulcans hadn't learned to repress their violent tendencies.
Come on, we got work to do.
Yeah, there was something I read about in DS9. Quark mentions a holo program about Ferengi love slaves.
Oh, yes.
It's also like super not excellent. But
no.
May have some connection to this, according to that T'Pol's Vulcan love slave act possibly inspires the Ferengi's holosuite program and novel in the future. Are we going to be able to quickly get through this episode? Because actually,
that's a bold statement to say 47 minutes into this episode, Cocky.
Hey, let's take a quick pause.
Of course.
So,
how quick do you want to get through?
This was kind of a nothing burger of an episode, right? Did you ever feel like they were in real peril or they were being really clever?
No.
I sort of had the same thing. I enjoyed it throughout. I was never impressed with anyone.
As they say, Star Trek comfort food. You know?
Yeah, because it's like Die Hard.
In a way, yes.
In a way,
yeah.
But nowhere near as exciting.
No.
It's also not as thrilling. Everything's sort of okay. It's low stakes for
the Ferengi
are.
The Ferengi are actually in a bit of a hurry to leave because they know that the sleep gas is going to stop working in about initially 3 hours. Yeah. And then it becomes 2 hours. And then, of course, they are like, as they later on discover that other people have woken up, it's like, oh, how come you are awake?
Yep.
They go about sick bay. They think they found a vault, but it's the doctor's photon torpedo launcher.
Oh, yep. And meanwhile, regrettably, Trip Tucker has found himself a uniform. He's stripped down another... Has he stripped down another?
No. He doffs the uniform over his underwear.
It's a bit tight. He can't get it completely closed.
It's a science crew uniform.
Yes, which I read in the trivia. By the end of the series, he has worn all 3 of the division's uniforms in various circumstances. But yeah, the Ferengi have mistaken the imaging chamber in sickbay
for the vault, yes.
Because it's so secure, and Ulis, who's played by basically Neelix, recognizes there's a spot over here. You can press this button, then it opens up. And the other Ferengi are so terrified of this extending table that rolls out, even drawing their weapon.
Yeah. There's more looting. There's like a little bit of argument starts to develop here between several of the Ferengi. You've got the...
bickering, my favorite.
Yes, the red-coated one, who seems to be,
Maybe we do have to find their names. Let's just look it up.
He seems to be a bit more of a mercenary, or at least not standard part of the crew.
Yeah.
You said the ship would make us rich. We'll be lucky if we break even.
We had a deal.
I'm amending it. Anything I find, I keep.
Yeah. The one you're talking about, the mercenary one, that's Clint Howard, and he's Muck. Ethan Phillips, Neelix, is the captain. Ulis, Jeffrey Combs is Krem, and then you also have Matt Malloy as Grish, who doesn't really get to do anything.
No, he just stands there looking a little bit... Yeah.
I wonder if originally maybe Grish was also intended to have, a particular actor attached, but maybe through timing or budgetary reasons they weren't able to seal that deal. Maybe they wanted to get Max Grudenchik or maybe Armin Shimmerman. But alas...
Okay, so there's actually a couple things about that. So, according to the Star Trek Magazine, Volume 3, Issue 3, in an interview with Clint Howard, he does say that, I heard that they had been thinking of me for one of the more aggressive Ferengi. Howard mentioned that when he auditioned for the acquisition, his doing so involved competing with several other guys for all the Ferengi roles. So yes, there was a little bit of competition for these roles, despite already being somewhat established people. I sort of wonder if they just didn't go with Armin Shimmerman or Max Grudenchik because they were so attached to these characters that it could be distracting. Whereas Ethan Phillips, Jeffrey Combs, and Clint Howard, you can just be like, oh yeah, it's that person that's already been in the show. We know them, but they get to do something else, and that's kind of fun in and of itself. In addition, they were given a lot more freedom for how to portray them compared to what we saw before. In that same interview, Clint Howard says, I knew what a Ferengi was. I'd seen Armin Shimmerman's work, and I'd seen enough of Deep Space Nine to know what they were like. But the producers and Jimmy Whitmore, the director, said, these are different. This is the very first time in the world of Star Trek. They're going to see Ferengis, so be comfortable in whatever your choices are. They're fine because it means just everybody else has been wrong. So really just kind of like letting them do what they wanted. This is a really interesting article talking about exactly this episode and talking about they were written specifically so you could tell who was who, so you could tell what they were saying, even when they're speaking Ferengi, just by like how they're saying it. They're really kind of letting them go over the top and just have fun with it. And I think you can tell that because even backing away from the thing and pulling out a pistol, it's just funny. This is just a really funny episode. And I love the physical comedy that all of these characters bring to this. This is fantastic.
Trip starts to set the first stage of what's going to be the final plan. We see him installing a mysterious device in a place that we don't really... actually...
The label says biomatter resequencing. So I think this is where shit gets turned into food.
Right, yes.
Right?
Fair enough, yeah.
Which, in an enclosed environment, carbon's carbon.
Yeah.
It doesn't know where it is. It doesn't have a lingering aftertaste. And we do expel a lot of carbon that, with some energy from an antimatter reaction or whatever, can be resequenced into proteins and becomes food. It was a joke in the latter seasons of Discovery. Our food is made out of shit.
Yeah.
And people are disgusted by it. And everything is essentially made out of shit.
Everything's recycled, yeah.
Yeah, like on our planet.
It's, yeah.
The circle of poop.
Yes, essentially, yes.
But he covers that label with a lock. That's what that device is. Yeah. It's a special lock that seals that door.
It looks very impressive. It looks very impressive. Meanwhile, the Ferengi are bickering on the bridge. They are still looking for the vault, and they figure like...
If I'm not mistaken, these are the captain's quarters.
So, that's where you keep your latinum?
Hmm?
Okay, point taken.
Conspicuously no answer is given.
But you can definitely see the whole little point taken look that he gives. T'Pol is being sneaky because she sets up some alarm shrieking sound tone which really disturbs the Ferengi.
Correctly interpreting that their massive ears probably give them sensitive hearing.
Yeah.
And while they're looking at the console that's shrieking, she can sort of Pink Panther into the bench.
Yes. It is kind of unclear what she does until the Ferengi start bickering.
Where are my scanners? I left them right here. You should be more careful with your acquisitions.
Because there are
sewing
two in your
descent.
bag.
Yeah.
But where's the third? Well, the third is apparently what
the other guy has. Yeah.
No, T'Pol has
T'Pol
it.
keeps it. Right, that's it, yes.
What does she do with it, do you think?
I don't know. We don't know what kind of scanner it is.
See, Okay, getting ahead of myself a bit, but this is actually one of the points of criticism that I have with this episode. Why isn't it more clever?
Right.
There's an opportunity for incredibly clever hijinks, and, because it's all about actors and performers and seeing how these characters come together, and it's clever-ish.
Well, I guess they decided that they wanted to play on the Ferengi's greed and mistrust for each other, and that's what they're building. Just as Trip is setting the lock on the room to make it look like it might be a vault, she is basically doing the same thing that Archer was doing with Krem earlier, is basically getting them suspicious about each other. It's like making sure that they're feeding the mistrust and feeding the greed and the, so that they all end up going tumbling into the same room together.
It's really cool to see all of these sets being used just as spaces that people are walking through, Mm-hmm. You don't see the captain in engineering very often. I've always loved the engineering on Enterprise, by the way. The horizontal warp engine as just this giant machine that people are always around, like this, I don't know, almost this religious tabernacle. Right? Because this is the Warp 5 engine.
Yeah.
Only one in the fleet. It makes the impossible possible.
Going Warp 5, yes.
Yeah, and people are like crawling over it and maintaining it. It's this animal god.
I'm surprised your friend didn't get electrocuted. You can't just yank out an antimatter injector like it was a light bulb.
And he is going on like, well, I mean, why aren't you with the other guys trying to find the vault? Because, you might get cheated.
What happened to never allow family to stand in the way of profit?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Because a century or two later, rule number 6 is don't let family stand in the way of opportunity.
Yes.
Oh, yes, you've been paying attention.
I have.
Yeah, because at this point, there's only 117 rules of acquisition. Whereas
176, I believe it says.
Oh, very good.
And there's almost 100. There's more than 100.
There's over 200.
Yes.
By the time
he tries to tempt Krem. He says,
help me capture your associates, and I'll show you where the vault is. We'll split the gold, 50-50. Once they're in the brig, you can fly off a wealthy man.
I think you're really right equating him to Rom.
Yeah.
Right? He has this idea, these are the things that are expected of me to want, and I do kind of want them, but, I don't really want them, but somebody else who's better at it will help me get there. Yeah, that's a codependent relationship with exploitation.
Oh, absolutely. And Archer even offers to throw T'Pol in.
Yeah.
Again,
did not love that.
But he doesn't buy it. Krem goes he considers it. He thinks about it good and hard.
Yeah.
But he goes
get back to work.
I really didn't love that. What was your plan here?
He's trying to get him to sell out the other two.
Yeah, but risking T'Pol's life? Does he know that T'Pol is awake at this point?
Oh.
He has no way of knowing that.
I guess not. It might have. No, I'd say that they have coordinated.
Yeah, but he only had one conversation with Tucker.
Oh, yeah.
Telling him where the hyperspray was. He has no idea if Tucker succeeded in waking anyone up and whether it would be T'Pol.
Oh, didn't he? Oh, yeah, he saw them.
Oh, he saw them?
Yeah, when they were in bed. But T'Pol was still feigning sleep at that point. But he saw Tucker.
Okay.
He saw Tucker there, so he might have, because he saw Tucker peeking through the crates.
Maybe this episode is cleverer than I actually caught on to. Hey, well, that's awesome.
Yes.
Because, the writers must have understood this is also an opportunity to just be plot clever, just have some fun with it. Okay, awesome, thank you.
Meanwhile, in the captain's quarters, Porthos is being interrogated.
It's so cool.
I can't lock onto its language. It's a lower life form, you fool. Probably the captain's next meal. Don't be so sure. Look at the size of its ears.
I know!
That was great.
And Porthos is being such a good boy.
Yeah, wag, wag, wag.
I've always wondered, what does Porthos do when the captain is, suddenly long-term absent or,
pine for his presence.
Yes, but does he have a potty?
Oh, I mean...
Because he is a full-on, biological creature with needs.
I assume there must be a little grass area, field, where he can do his thing.
Oh, he has a little holodeck just for him, a little mousy hole.
I mean, you occasionally see, at airports and other locations, you can occasionally see, I've seen that in certain places. It's like a little dog toilet, which is kind of like a room where...
oh, wow.
Yeah, where you can let the dogs
do
out.
Their business, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm not a dog owner. I know our chief engineer has grown up with dogs, and currently his parents have a wonderful Australian shepherd named Ahsoka. Isn't that right, Chief?
Well, funny that.
Yep, that's true. Believe it or not, I had nothing to do with the naming of her. Don't blame me. That was my parents entirely on their own.
She's a big girl by now, but
I can imagine, yes.
by the photos that we occasionally get sent from our chief engineer, she's a very good girl.
Oh. And yes, Porthos is kind of like low. I mean, it's a beagle, so...
I wonder if this is Breezy again.
Oh,
Do you remember
it's going to be Breezy or the other one.
Oh, no, this is the first season.
Oh, so it would still be the original dog.
The original boy dog.
Yes, you don't get a view of it, I think.
Yeah, that was apparently like the reason that he was replaced with two girls, because he was way too hung for television.
Oh, why is that a bloody problem? I mean,
know.
Half of the people who are watching the show have a dog of their own.
I know.
And,
I
you
know.
it's not
and you've got Trip Tucker running around with all three of his balls on display. Or whatever. Like, he's going full, like, David Bowie handful is what he's got in his underpants, basically.
Well, it's a double handful, that.
Referencing to Labyrinth.
Porthos gets carried off and put in a crate because the red-coated Ferengi is going to sell it at the zoo market or whatever it's called.
And Porthos, the dog actor, is doing such a good job of being so chill about it. Well, he's just being carried around and, like, space is made in this crate and he's dumped in there and the lid is shut. It's like, oh, yeah, fine, I'm a professional actor.
I guess it's boring. Right, there's a little chase scene around the area there.
Yeah, the mess. Oh, yes.
To lure him into the mess.
Yeah, where very cleverly Trip pretends to be a slumped over crew person.
Yes, jumps the Ferengi, fights him, bites him on the lobes as they're fighting for the phaser.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, he bites him.
Grabs himself a gun, which he uses successfully, but then he gets energy whipped in the hand.
By
Ulis.
Ulis, that's the one, yeah.
The second and last time that the energy whip is displayed. Yeah,
Oh.
They were shown as the Ferengi weapon of choice in the last outpost.
I remember that one.
And never showed up again, except I think Quark had a little Ferengi action figure who had an energy whip.
Nice.
Why aren't you asleep?
And then he just whips him out.
He looks fucking cool doing it. Can we just say how cool the energy whip looks like when it's held by someone who's wearing a duster?
Yeah, it's very... Indiana Jonesy,
yes.
But yes, he almost casually flicks it. It's right. It's whips are cool weapons. Sorry.
Yes, they really are. Like, do you know Jacques the Whipper?
Yes.
Yes.
Very well.
Really?
Well, not personally, but I've seen many videos.
A staple of many Ren fairs. He is a very handsome man in his 20s or 30s, wearing period-appropriate and figure-appropriate clothing.
Yes. Did you know that he's a news anchor as a day job?
Yeah. It's amazing. And then for this persona, he puts on this over-the-top fake French accent and this
little pencil mustache.
Beautiful mustache, and with two bull whips, which he uses as musical instruments and gives these performances. He holds whip cracking records.
Oh.
Several. Like, he beat his own Guinness record.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Archer is moving on Krem again, trying to you should show some more initiative. And he's like, I'm not in charge. Well, with that attitude.
You never will be.
Yeah.
Which is actually really good captaining advice.
True.
For like a junior officer.
Yeah.
Hey, it's about time that you put yourself out there.
Yeah.
If you get it wrong, you'll be demoted. But if you get it right, that's your path up. That's how the rest of us make it.
So now the Trip gets thrown in here. And it's like, they're like, oh, why is he awake?
This uniform is like way too tight on him. I kind of love it.
Like he grabbed the first one he could find, you know?
No, I kind of... Because, I mean, Star Trek has historically had a reputation for sexualizing female characters. And Enterprise decided to do that better by sexualizing
the male
dudes
ones, yes.
sometimes as well through the lens of the male gaze. But I appreciated it.
There's more arguing. It's like, oh, they're waking early is basically what's going on. So maybe we should leave. Quickly. I was like, well, if you want to leave, you can take one of the shuttles.
Yeah. And Trip and Archer, they put on... I mean, this has got to be a callback to, like, the original series, because how often did they do fake fighting?
Oh, yes.
Between officers?
So many times. Like,
right?
I mean, I think it's also lampshaded in Galaxy Quest as well. It's like, like in episode 14. Or,
oh, yes, yes.
Leave the women here, and I'll let you have the gold.
Not another word, Commander. That's an order.
I'm not letting them take my wife.
Wife?
I thought it was very good because Krem says...
She's not the one with the pointy ears, is she?
No. Her name's Hoshi.
Because Hoshi's still unconscious.
Yeah.
Like, he trusts T'Pol to take care of herself because she can.
Yeah.
T'Pol is actually awake. She doesn't need my protection as much as
right.
other people.
Not that any of the Ferengi would know which one is Hoshi.
Sure. But still, I thought it was a very rational choice by an officer thinking on his feet.
But having the little fight sells the story that he is willing to rat out his captain's gold hoard to the Ferengi in exchange for the safety of the crew.
And after more bickering,
yep,
the 3 senior Ferengi go off with Tucker to find the hoard.
Well, not before there's like the one scene where Brem finally stands up for himself until he gets shouted down and everybody.
It's time that I showed a little initiative. I have the lobes for business. You just never give me the chance to prove it.
And everybody
the other three
chuckles
just
about
laughs.
him.
Yeah, it's like, you loser.
Cock.
Yeah.
Beta cock.
Ew.
Yeah, gross. Archer now fakes a muscle sprain.
Yes, it's an old water polo injury. Flares up every now and again. Buddy, the only water polo injury you're going to get is a twisted nutsack.
Whoa! Is it? I mean, I don't know water polo very, very well. It seems like it requires a lot of fitness, but what's a twisted nutsack?
It's literally when one of your opponents grabs you by the balls and gives it a twist.
Are you allowed to do that?
No, of course not, but it happens.
But only in water polo?
There's a lot of pinching and underwater kicking and other nastiness going on in water polo. Yeah, it's a vicious sport.
Maybe we should get into it. I mean, I didn't know much about... I call it ice hockey because field hockey is the norm in our country. We don't have ice as much as we used to, unfortunately, due to the unfolding climate crisis. But yeah, when it was one of the first trips I took to the States, our friend Brian took me to a hockey game, and good gosh...
Oh, yeah.
That's some ferocity. And especially how it's sort of organized, that when 2 gentlemen have really had enough of one another's bullshit, that they'll sort of throw their gloves down and we're doing a fight now in the middle of a sports.
I mean, when the gloves come off, literally when the gloves come off, that's kind of like the signaling consent to have a little punch-up. And the refs usually let it go on for a while. But did you also know that they also have, enforcers?
Enforcers?
Yeah, so they're basically big... brutish members of the team that if someone on the other side is a little bit too rough with one of their star players, then they get sent in to just make sure that they get smashed into the boarding a few times.
Oh, yikes.
Oh, yeah. It's
I did learn that about... I thought that was actually kind of cool when Brian explained it to me. The protectiveness toward the goalkeeper. Because despite their armor, they're actually really vulnerable. They don't have gloved hands. They have padding.
Right.
But underneath their hands are actually ungloved and therefore very much at risk. So anyone who takes too many risks with one of their goalkeepers gets
that might be it. What they use the enforcers for.
We are way out of our depth on this. None of this is factual, or please don't. Oh, thank God we don't have a segment where people can correct us on our bullshit. But
Archer gets himself tied up again, and Krem has to do the carrying himself, where Trip takes the other 3 on a bit of a wild goose chase.
I recognize that conduit.
We have 1,000 conduits like that on this ship.
We're going in circles.
This way.
Yeah,
it's just buying time.
You can only get here if you know where you're going. And I assume it's to get T'Pol enough time to get into the room first.
Yeah, I have a note about that. How did she prime the lock on the outside of the door that she's hiding behind?
Who says the door is locked? It just has to look like a lock. It doesn't have to be a real lock.
I looked at it.
Oh.
So when Trip first puts the lock on that door, beep, 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 and then it turns red, which indicates locked.
Yeah.
And when he brings the 3 Ferengi to that door, the lock on the outside of the door is beep, 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 is red, and he beep, beeps it until it opens again. So she must have opened it to get in.
Yeah. It's literally a box which he sticks to the door.
Episodes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a sealing lock that you stick on the door. This is exactly how it functions.
Oh, okay.
We know that. Well, maybe not from this season, but
okay. Fair enough. I'll take that. Just based on what we see here.
Okay.
You can't really judge that, but yeah, okay. If that's canon, that thing is actually a lock. I don't know. Maybe you can put it on a time delay. Lock after 10 seconds. It's an electronic thing. It can do anything.
Actually, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Microwaves have a timer. I love all of these environments. I love these Jeffrey tubes that they crawl through, these hallways. They're really making a lot of...
use of the sets.
Yeah, they're getting their money's worth.
It's a good thing that he's doing that, because T'Pol is still talking to Brem. He's doing the whole little seduction thing. It's oh no.
Why do you live with them?
It wasn't my choice. I'm a captive here. They've enslaved me.
And can you maybe you can save me?
Oh, yes, you're right. Yeah, she's made it onto the Ferengi ship.
Do you know how to perform a mox?
And it's like, oh, yeah, it's just like that. And then
nerve pinches
him. Yeah.
Yes. Could have done that a lot sooner.
You'd think so, yeah.
They're being awfully, it's almost as if they want the practice with duplicity.
You'd think, yeah. They're not acting like the Ferengi are a particular big threat. It's more like a nuisance that needs to be dealt with.
I mean, I guess it's the case where the Ferengi each have a weapon and they have none.
Yeah.
Although, at this point, a chair leg would sort of even the odds, considering how close quarters Enterprise is. Knowing the layout, standing around the corner with a chair leg is about a 1-to-1, advantage.
Which is almost what happens once they finally get to the quote-unquote vault.
Yeah.
Better let me go in first.
Why?
Knowing Captain Archer, he's probably rigged the place with booby traps.
That was brilliant, because at first he was about to stand back, and then he sort of senses the mood in the room, and he goes, oh, well, I'll go in first then. No, just in case there's booby traps. Because, there's not an English equivalent of it, but the Dutch expression, zoals de waard is vertrouwd zijn gasten.
Yeah.
As per the innkeeper's character, as his own character is, that's how he trusts his guests.
Yes.
Suspicious people think other people are duplicitous.
Yeah.
And honest people think other people are honest.
So he goes let me give you a few minutes, and go oh no, you could have a weapon in there. I'll go, because now you're just going to stick gold in your pockets, and I want to count all the gold. And there's literally a fight.
Have these ever seen gold and how heavy it is? It's so heavy. I see films where people sneak a gold brick under their clothes.
Yeah.
That gold brick weighs as much as your leg.
Yes.
Your whole leg.
Yes.
You wouldn't be able to I'm sorry.
I guess, it makes sense, Most people haven't, handled gold in any significant quantities.
No, but you've held lead. You have held lead as a person who, what's it called? You, print your own bullets as a marksman enthusiast? You have, what's the machine that goes clunk?
Called a
what's
press.
That called? Press.
It's a bullet press, yeah.
Bullet press,
yeah. There's we are literally using some of that right now, because there's 2 boxes of lead bullets, copper-coated lead bullets standing underneath our microphone table, holding and weighted down.
Stabilize it so that we can keep our, an excellent use, which I'm sure you can find a better solution so you can put those to good use.
Eventually I'm still planning on melting down a bunch of lead to screw to the underside of this table so it can just sit there.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Putting your other fantastic talent as a smith to use. Kay, is there anything that you're not amazing at?
Lots of things, yes.
Ah, well, I shudder to someday encounter something.
But I enjoy learning new things. So it's I'm one of those jack of all trades, master of none type of people.
So you jack off all trades?
Well, let's not go there.
Hey!
T'Pol is hiding behind the door.
It's great. She's using the door as cover. She takes out 2 of the Ferengi. She blasts an overhead pipe to create
steam,
some smoke.
Which is in the waste recycler, the recombination plant might not be the most clever place to do that.
Yeah, I was expecting some kind of manure joke, but no.
Oh, yes.
They've been taken out, and now we get
a weird scene where T'Pol, I guess, pretends taking offense at something that the captain said earlier.
Yes, because while she was playing possum and Krem was really interested in her, he had some very critical things to say about her species. But that's just to discourage him from enslaving her.
Yeah. She pretends to, I assume she's pretending. She's just playing hard ass here.
Not that interesting. No sense of humor. Always complaining.
Considering this recommendation came from Nazzy, who, to her great surprise, found T'Pol becoming her favorite character in all of Star Trek. I'm actually really inclined to see something favorable in T'Pol here, because while she starts off as this, this trope of an ice queen who is very disdainful and disrespectful and in many ways kind of bigoted toward humans, I think this is an early example of, her character is actually really, really compatible with humans.
Oh, yes, I suppose, yeah.
There's a reason that she sticks around even when she doesn't have to. And it's because she kind of likes it. She feels like she can be herself in this environment, and maybe the ability to give a little bit of snark
Yeah.
Like she's doing here, teasing him.
Which would kind of like be not done on Vulcan, I guess. And that's not true. Vulcans are snarky as hell.
Toward non-Vulcans, generally. But eventually, he has to order her to unlock his cuffs.
Yes.
Which, of course, she does.
All right, scene of the Ferengi putting all the stuff back. Archer grabbing Porthos.
And Porthos is so happy.
Oh, hello, Lixies.
Yep.
Puppy kisses.
Jumps out.
And all the Ferengi are put back on their ship, and Krem is left in charge.
Yeah, they're informed that the Vulcan authorities have been alerted. You don't come anywhere near our space ever
within
again.
a light year of one of our ships.
Or you'll be sorry.
Yes.
I mean, don't they have anywhere to arrest them?
I don't have no idea what space law says. I mean, is there a space law? There's certainly no Federation yet.
Okay, let's work this out. I'm the captain of the Enterprise. Yeah. The Enterprise is an extension of Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I encounter territory that contests that, where I'm not supposed to be, then
yes.
I'm in the wrong, and we'll make diplomatic reparations for that.
Yeah.
But if it's, interplanetary space is not owned by anyone.
No.
But on my ship, my law counts.
Yes.
Right? So if you enter my ship and you perform acts, those acts are interpreted under my law, and you can go to jail in my country.
They can be punished by Earth standards. So this would be...
Unless you have an extradition treaty.
Right.
In which case you can be returned to, your polity.
Depends. Yeah, a judicial system, but only if it's like also punishable. Well, it gets complicated.
Yeah, no, but fundamentally, in your rights to arrest and detain these people under your law until a treaty is established or some kind of diplomatic event takes
what
place.
the hell are they going to do with them? Like, what do they want to do with full Ferengi in the brig?
I know.
Yeah.
This is the thing, though. They really don't want to go back, so they let them go free and just give a slap on the wrist. But it's also not like...
I mean, you can shoot them out of... Yeah.
Well, I wasn't going to suggest, airlocking them, summary execution, but, I mean, I don't know, crippling their engine so you can only go to warp 4, so you can't be such a nuisance?
I don't know. Do they have warp 5 engines? I don't know. Sounds like something the Ferengi might not have unless they stole one, yeah.
If you want to be unshackled, you might think about showing Krem here a little more respect.
He gets to do something that he clearly has wanted to do for quite a long time, which is grab the controls and fly off the ship.
Yeah, because all the others, they try to tempt him into, hey, let me go, and I'll give you half of this or
I'll
half
give you
of
my
whatever.
Latinum pen.
I know you've wanted it. I'll help you. I know he resists all of them, and now he's got his own ship.
I can introduce you to a Bolian female.
Yikes.
Right.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Hey, we didn't have any, interstitial warp cores.
No, there weren't. I don't think there were any, I would have to say about in this episode.
Oh, I should have done one. Okay, mine should have been for the lock that I'm still open.
Right. Well,
and then
I mean, and
you
then I
could have used
shields up.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we should have.
Yes.
I'll find a new sound effect or something to do the interstitial. So we have the warp core at the start, which is, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, what do you think of the play?
Yes.
And then we'll have, what do you think? Lock phasers? What kind of sound effect do you want?
I don't know. No idea.
Red alert versus shields up? Because this one is shields up.
Yeah.
Right? We recognize that one. So what's venting plasma or something?
No, I don't know. Computer and simulation.
Well, we have one other segment for which I have a sound effect that should be appearing here soon, which I can fire because we have completed the talking about the episode.
Yes.
And so... Yeah. And now we could talk about our...
Captain's log, supplemental.
Yeah, so what scenes do we think were deleted from the script or during the editing process that were definitely in there?
Oh, difficult. I really had a hard time coming up with one of those.
Well, have a think about that, because mine was going to be all the various subplots of other actors.
Yeah.
I'd like to imagine that... No, okay. So initially, I really like to imagine that this episode could have been cleverer than it was. I'm actually starting to come around to Nazzy's perspective that maybe it was a lot cleverer than I appreciated. But maybe, in the original cut, Hoshi did wake up and she did have something to do. And so did Malcolm Reed, who does not appear, or Travis Mayweather, who doesn't appear.
Sir not appearing in this episode. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That they got other stuff to do. But I didn't really have anything specific. I mean, I'm thinking about like Ocean's 11 and Ocean's 12,
Yes.
13, like those incredibly elaborate conspiracies that are revealed at the end to have all been a plan, and some of it went right, some of it went wrong.
I've got one. It's like right at the end, after the Ferengi ship flies off, Archer is on the screen and goes like, "Where's Porthos?" And we see, and we have Porthos sitting there like on the ship of the
with a little eye patch, and like he's in charge now.
Wagging, just like wagging it.
Oh no, I've changed my mind. Actually, I have a new one, which is that at the very end, after the Enterprise flies away and like 3 of the Ferengi are handcuffed, and they all start applauding. Well done, Captain Krem, because this was all their secret plan to get the name plaque of the Enterprise, which they needed.
Very good.
And they zap back to the future where they're originally from, and like they had a plan and it worked out perfectly.
Nice. Yes. I will gladly go along with that one.
You guys, this is so fucking cool.
Okay, I don't know why I tapped that one. But.
All right, so I guess that only leaves us with thank you for listening and what we'll be doing next week.
Oh, yes, we have some clues for the next episode that we're going to listen to. Let's see. So here's the first clue, and this is a quote from the next episode read to us by our chief engineer.
Riker says, "You'd be surprised how far a hug goes with Geordi or Worf."
Geordi or Worf hugging.
Yeah. Or getting hugged by either Geordi or Worf.
Oh, interesting. Let's find the next one.
Guinan says, "I get so tired of people coming in with their problems."
Whoa.
Okay.
How does she get tired of that? She likes to talk.
That's her thing.
That's why you open a bar.
Yeah.
All right.
Troy says, "We have to get 2-dimensional." Troy.
Oh, I think I know something about this. There's something with a 2-dimensional species.
Right.
Oh, that's really ringing a bell.
Okay.
Troy says, "That is a common belief with no scientific basis, no doubt created by normal people who felt uncomfortable around the disabled."
Ooh.
Okay, I've got a strong idea.
Okay, well, hit me with the last one.
Well, I mean, I think it's the one where Deanna Troi loses her ability to sense other people's emotions.
Yeah.
Right, and it deals with that as the loss of a sense, a disability. And it has something to do with 2-dimensionality. I don't know what it's called. I think it's like The Loss or something, but let's see.
Okay.
Chief?
The episode is Next Generation, Season 4, Episode 10, The Loss.
The Loss!
Very good.
I got it
Very
right.
good.
Yes. Oh, excellent. Oh, I wonder who that was recommended by. I remember some of these recommendations coming in, and someone was, we have some people who are great fans of Deanna Troi. It's going to be really exciting to revisit that. And Marina Sirtis is
I must have seen it, but I don't recall it. It might come to me when we're watching it again.
I mean, season 4 would be of Next Generation would be 1991-ish, 1992, thereabouts. But, well, that's something to look forward to next time. Thank you for joining us. Enterprise Season 1, Episode 19, Acquisition.
The hell is this?
I'm leaving Starfleet.
Energize!
We got it right this time. I'm so proud of us.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode with your friends Kay and Kaki. Production and editing by your chief engineer Greg, and music by Fox Amore. Join us next time for Next Generation Season 4, Episode 10, The Loss. Visit joyoftrek.com/links to send us your recommendation, support us on Patreon, or to find us on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to The Joy of Trek, and we'll see you out there.